Word count, 1,000. The surface of the moon Arinder II was a scorched wasteland, cracked obsidian plains, sulfur winds, and silence that felt older than memory. Commander Jason Reese stepped carefully over jagged terrain, his boots crunching on powdered glass. 30 years ago, this place was the heart of the Aurelian Empire. Now, it was little more than a graveyard. His HUD flickered with unstable readings. Psionic surge, faint. Human-compatible life signs, unconfirmed. He lowered his visor. No way anything's breathing out here. But the anomaly persisted. Isolated, pulsing softly beneath a ruined tower that once kissed the stars. With practiced ease, Jason descended the slope, his gloved hand grazing the cold stone of a half-collapsed arch. The structure ahead wasn't military. It had the graceful, arched design of something ceremonial, maybe a temple or palace wing. Faint carvings still clung to the walls, spirals, flames, and the crest of the House of Light, the Aurelian royal family. He'd seen it before, in intelligence files marked deceased. He raised his rifle out of habit, stepped inside. The air changed. Not in temperature, but pressure. A low thrum, deep in the bones. Not sound, more like a memory forcing itself into the now. He rounded a corner and saw it, a stasis pod, half sunken into rubble, flickering with dying blue light. He stepped closer. The pod's inscription was ancient, but the name was still readable. Nellure of Light. Jason blinked. That couldn't be right. Princess Nellura had died in the last orbital strike, her body never recovered. Even if she had survived, she'd be, 50 by now? But inside the pod, the woman hadn't aged a day. Her skin glowed with the faint shimmer of psionic inheritance. Silver-white hair framed a face serene in sleep. An energy pulse jumped in the pod's core, fading fast. He dropped to one knee, examining the system. No time for protocol. Her vitals were dipping. Jason yanked open his pack, pulled out his field regulator, and jammed it into the pod's power intake. The interface screamed, objecting to human Aurelian mismatch, but stabilized. A hiss of air. The lid cracked open. Her eyes fluttered. Jason leaned back, hands up. Easy. You're safe. Her eyes, solid violet, locked on him, then scanned the ruins. Panic flickered across her features. I am not in the light chamber, she said, voice raw. Her accent was formal, clipped. Where's my mother? Jason hesitated. The war's over. Has been for 3 decades. She sat up too fast and winced. 3, what year is it? Earth reckoning? 2471. Her face hardened. You are human. Guilty. Her gaze narrowed. Did your kind win? Jason didn't flinch. Nobody won. She stared at him. You lie well. I'm not lying. Half your empire's in ruins. Most of ours too. There's a ceasefire now. Trade routes. Talks. She glanced at the fallen walls, then down at herself. Her robe was torn at the hem. A regal insignia shimmered on her collar, faded, but intact. Then why did you come here? He holstered his weapon. Research. I scanned dead zones for psionic echoes. Yours lit up like a flare. She looked away. I was not meant to wake. Not like this. Jason softened. You were presumed dead. I was dead. I chose stasis over surrender. Jason tilted his head. You knew the war was lost. I knew my mother would make peace. And I could not bear to see the surrender. Her eyes met his. But I see peace did not cleanse the ashes. A low growl echoed in the distance. Jason's posture changed instantly. Scavenger beasts. Not smart, but persistent. We should move. She tried to stand and staggered. He caught her elbow instinctively. She pulled back. Do not touch. You're weak. Let me help or stay and argue. But I'm not dragging royalty out of here in a sack. She paused. Then gave a single nod. They moved quickly through the ruins. Jason's NAV marked an exfil 0.2 clicks west. The beasts snarled again, closer. How long was I entombed? She asked as they navigated a narrow ravine. 30 years and change. Then my mother, she truly believed I perished. Jason didn't answer. She stopped walking. You knew her, didn't you? I was there the day she signed the truce. She wept for you before the ink dried. That silenced her. As they reached the ridge, Jason checked the scanner. For heat signatures. Fast-moving. He raised his weapon. Run. She didn't argue this time. They sprinted across the ridge, sand blasting against their suits. One of the creatures, a bipedal scav beast with fused armor plating, leapt toward them from the shadows. Jason fired once, blasting its torso apart with plasma. Another lunged from the left. Before he could aim, Nelyra raised her hand. A pulse of silver energy erupted from her palm, flinging the creature back in a lifeless heap. Jason blinked. Guess you still got it. She breathed hard. Stasis does not kill bloodlines. The rest fled. Smart enough to fear. When they reached the landing site, his evac drone hovered above the dust, ready for departure. Jason turned to her. You need to come with me. She looked toward the ruins. If I do, everything changes. He nodded. Maybe for the better. She looked up at the dark sky, where Earth ships now dotted Aurelian stars. Very well, she said softly. But you do not yet understand what has returned. He smiled. Then educate me. And they stepped onto the transport, toward a world not ready for what it buried. The diplomatic station orbiting Earth's outer ring wasn't built for secrets, but Commander Jason Reese had made a career of slipping them through tight spaces. The medical bay lights buzzed faintly overhead as he leaned against the wall, watching Nelyra sit stiff-backed on the examination table. She wore a human-issued robe, though she kept tugging the sleeves lower, uncomfortable in anything that wasn't imperial silk. Her eyes scanned every inch of the room like it was enemy territory. You're safe here, Jason said. She didn't look at him. You say that often. I've had to say it often. A soft chime interrupted them. Jason tapped his earpiece. Reese, came a clipped voice. This is Admiral Osei. Report to the command chamber. Priority, Aurelian contact. He tensed. On my way. When the call ended, Nelyra spoke without turning. She knows, doesn't she? Jason nodded. Your mother's been informed. But not how. Nelyra slid off the table. You should have let me vanish again. And let history choke on a lie. She turned to face him. You don't understand the cost of truth in our courts. He met her stare. Then explain it to me. But she only said, go. Before your admiral wonders what else you're hiding. Jason hesitated, then left. The command chamber's glass walls overlooked the Earth-Mars corridor. Admiral Osei stood alone, her dark uniform crisp, silver stripes marking decades of decisions under pressure. She's alive, Jason said, not wasting time. Osei nodded. We received a direct query from the Aurelian throne, coded in the Queen's personal cipher. They suspect, not know. Veil, Jason said flatly. Osei raised a brow. The Inquisitor? Jason stepped closer. He's the only one with access to those signals. He'd never let Nelyra live. He sees the peace as weakness. Osei folded her arms. And you brought the Empire's best reason for war into our station. She's not a threat. She's an answer. To what? Political collapse? A royal scandal? Jason didn't blink. To peace. Real peace. The Queen thought her daughter was gone. Now she has a chance to rebuild something real. Or something fragile enough to shatter everything. Osei walked toward the console. The queen requested a private envoy. One human. No guards, no escort. Jason didn't hesitate. I'll go. She looked at him for a long moment. You're not going as a soldier this time. I know. Then you also know if this fails, your name starts the next war. He nodded. Understood. The shuttle to Aurelian space was silent except for the steady hum of its engines. Jason sat across from Nelyra, both strapped into acceleration seats. She stared at the stars as if trying to remember which ones had once been hers. Your mother's expecting us, Jason said. She'll ask questions. I don't plan to lie. Jason watched her. Then you're braver than I thought. No. I'm just tired of being dead. The craft docked at the royal station, a lattice of living crystal and metal, shaped more like a cathedral than a structure. Everything glowed softly, as if breathing. Guards awaited them, clad in ceremonial armor. No weapons drawn. Jason noticed the queen's crest woven into their capes, an olive branch wrapped in starlight. They passed beneath towering arches into the throne chamber. The room was carved from a single piece of moonstone. Light refracted through the crystal walls, throwing rainbows across polished floors. At the far end stood Queen Alanira. Older now. Still regal. Her white robe shimmered, and her face bore the weight of too many years of regret. Her voice was a whisper. Nelyra? The princess stopped short. For the first time, Jason saw hesitation in her. Then, softly, Mother. The queen crossed the floor, one step at a time, as if afraid the moment might break. She reached for Nelyra's face, touched her cheek. A tremble. Then she embraced her daughter with desperate silence. When they parted, Alanira spoke low. How? Nelyra gestured to Jason. Because he found me. Because he didn't treat me as an artifact. The queen looked at Jason with unreadable eyes. Human. Ma'am, he replied evenly. She lived. Alone. 4 decades. Why now? Jason answered carefully. Because the dead don't stay buried forever. And because love isn't limited by borders. The queen tilted her head. Love? Jason didn't flinch. I don't apologize for it. Nelyra's voice was calm. Mother, he's not just my rescuer. He's my bond. The queen closed her eyes. A human Aurelian bond is forbidden. Jason said, only by tradition. Not by law. Then tradition will burn, came a voice from behind. They turned as High Inquisitor Veilshar stepped into the chamber, flanked by his black-robed enforcers. His face was calm, but his eyes burned cold. The royal blood cannot mix with outsider corruption, he said. It weakens the line. It mocks the empire. The queen's voice sharpened. Veil, you are not welcome here. I serve the blood, Majesty. And this union defile it. Nelyra stepped forward. You lost your right to speak for our blood when you left me to die. You chose exile, he countered. I chose life. Veil sneered. Then you'll watch yours end. He raised his hand. The guards moved. Not toward Jason. Toward Nelyra. Jason moved faster. In a blink, his sidearm was drawn, aimed. Try it. The queen's voice rang out like thunder. Stand down. The chamber froze. Alanira's eyes locked with Veil's. Touch her again, and I'll execute you myself. Silence fell. Veil withdrew slowly, his face unreadable. You've sealed your fate, Majesty. He turned and vanished into the shadows. The queen sagged slightly, aged years and seconds. Jason holstered his weapon. He'll come back. She nodded. He never truly leaves. Nelyra stepped beside her mother. Then we end this now. The queen looked between her daughter and the human beside her. I may be the ruler, she said, but you too, you're the revolution. And outside the chamber, rebellion stirred. The underground vault wasn't mapped. Jason knew because he'd asked, twice. But Aurelian royalty always kept secrets beneath their palaces. The kind of secrets you could only find once you were desperate, or hunted. Nelyra lay curled in the corner, recovering slowly. The psionic bind Veil used had drained her. Jason checked his rifle, one charge left. Not nearly enough for a roomful of zealots. Stay low, he murmured. You're not fighting again. Not yet. She coughed. You can't take them alone. I won't have to. He tapped the comm embedded in his neck. Oh say. It's happening. You were right. Static. He tried again. Silence. They've jammed the signal, he muttered. Nelyra sat up, her eyes still dim but burning under the surface. We're under the throne chamber. The echo chamber. It amplifies speech, sound, thought. Jason looked at her. You thinking what I'm thinking? I'm thinking, we give them a reason to stop listening to Veil. Outside the heavy door, footsteps approached. Sharp. Unhesitating. Jason turned to her. You ready to burn a few traditions? Nelyra smiled faintly. They burned me first. Veilshar entered with 4 enforcers. His expression was serene, as if victory were inevitable. He addressed Nelyra, not Jason. Your blood belongs to this empire. Not to him. Jason stepped between them. Touch her, and you'll die here. Veil didn't blink. You misunderstand. I'm not here to kill you. I'm here to let the people watch her fail. He raised his wrist. A crystal flared, broadcasting. Every royal sanctuary, every noble hall, every loyalist warship now saw the image, the disgraced princess, the human by her side, and the self-proclaimed guardian of purity. Veil turned to the feed. People of Aurelian. Witness treason. Your lost heir returns, not to serve, but to mate with the enemy. Jason didn't wait. He stepped forward, cutting across the feed. You're right. I'm human. I wasn't born in a palace. I didn't kneel to your gods. I didn't speak your tongue until I was 20. He looked directly into the lens. But I bled beside your warriors when the ceasefire needed enforcing. I helped your farmers rebuild irrigation systems destroyed by your own purifiers. I watched your children play with ours on trade stations. And I loved one of yours when she had nothing to give me but her name. Nelyra stood beside him, her voice calm but firm. I am the daughter of Alanira. I survived your war. I survived your silence. I carry not only royal blood, but proof that this empire can evolve. Her hand found Jason's. Together, they radiated a soft psionic glow. If my bond with a human ends the empire, she said, then it was never worthy of the stars. Veil hissed, raising a blade of psionic crystal. You will not rewrite the bloodlines. He lunged. Jason moved. The rifle fired. Once. The shot struck Veil's shoulder, not fatal, but enough to drop him to the floor, stunned. The enforcers raised their weapons. Nelyra's eyes ignited. Not with fire, but with light. A pulse erupted from her, not violent but absolute. It swept through the chamber, passed through the cameras, through the crystals, through the air itself. Across the empire, every Aurelian, noble or not, felt it, truth without fear. Jason shielded his eyes. When the glow faded, Nelyra stood taller, her voice resonating through the open link. We are not your past. We are your future. If I must burn the old banners to raise new ones, so be it. Veil groaned on the ground. You would dissolve the blood? No, she said. I would purify it, with choice. Above, the throne chamber echoed with alarm bells. Queen Alanira stood calmly amid chaos. Ministers shouted. Guards shifted. Screens blinked with the feed from the vault. She claims the throne, one cried. With a human consort. She claims her right, the queen corrected. And I stand by her. Then we declare war. then you declare war on your own people. The queen raised her hand. Let it be known. As of this moment, the House of Light stands unified. Princess Nelyra returns not in disgrace, but in triumph. Her bond with the human shall be recognized. And should any challenge her right? Her eyes swept the room. They challenge mine. Hours later, the palace stood quiet. Jason and Nelyra stood in a garden high above the city, where gravity was light and the air shimmered with pollen. You're still breathing, she said, brushing wind-tossed strands from her eyes. Somehow. She smiled. You realize half the Empire thinks you bewitched me? I mean, technically I did kiss you first. She laughed, a sound he hadn't heard before. Soft, real. I was dead, she said. You woke me. You saved yourself. You stayed. He nodded. I will. She took his hand again. Then let them talk. A bell rang far below, ceremonial, peaceful. For the first time in 3 decades, the Aurelian Empire had no immediate enemies. Just 2 hands, one alien, one human, clasped together above a garden where war once bloomed. Not a perfect ending. Just the beginning of a new kind of empire. One not written in bloodlines, but in choice. The ceremony wasn't public. Not because the queen feared the reaction, but because the moment didn't belong to the empire. It belonged to the 2 people who stood, hand in hand, on the glass platform overlooking the twin sons of Aurelian. Jason Reese wore no uniform. No medals. Just the robe of a recognized bondmate, plain, earth-toned, and without insignia. Nelyra wore silver robes lined in subtle arcs of her house, now reforged to include Earth's crest at the hem. Not dominance. Not surrender. Recognition. I keep expecting someone to shoot at us, Jason murmured, eyes scanning the horizon. Me too, she replied softly. But perhaps fear finally ran out of ammunition. Jason chuckled, though tension still curled in his spine. He'd survived ambushes, assassinations, and orbital bombings. But this, peace, was harder to trust. Below them, the new Citadel Hall shimmered. Inside, delegates gathered. Human and Aurelian. Terrans in pressed suits. Aurelians in ceremonial armor. The crowd watched silently, waiting for something they hadn't yet seen in decades, permanence. Queen Alanira stood beneath the platform, beside the diplomats. She said nothing, but her presence alone changed everything. It was not a passing gesture. It was a decision. Jason leaned toward Nelyra. You don't have to say it. She turned. Say what? That this isn't what you imagined as a child. She smiled. It's not. He waited. But it's more. They faced the crowd. A single beam of light descended between them, a gesture from the Citadel's living core. The moment of acknowledgement. Nelyra lifted her palm. I, Nelyra of Light, daughter of the line that ruled the stars, do not break my house, I widen it. I do not forsake my people, I promise them a future. Jason followed her lead. I, Jason Reese, born of Earth, forged in war, now choose peace, not as surrender, but as evolution. I do not represent conquest, I represent commitment. Silence held. And then, the Citadel hummed. Not applause. Not cheer. Just quiet resonance. An empire that had once bowed only to force now bent, slightly, to something gentler. The bond was sealed. But change doesn't sleep. That evening, Jason walked the private gardens again. He needed space, not because he doubted the bond, but because history weighed heavier than armor. Behind him, footsteps approached. He didn't turn. I thought you'd be with your mother, he said. I was, Nelyra replied. She asked me what I would do if the empire split. He turned then. What did you say? That I'd rather build something smaller with purpose, than hold together something massive with fear. Jason exhaled. Good answer. I meant it. She sat beside him on a low stone bench. The plants around them were engineered, glowing slightly, changing shape with temperature. He watched them shift, like the world was still deciding what it wanted to be. Some loyalists are regrouping, she said. Vale's influence didn't vanish. I didn't think it would. Even peace casts shadows. Jason nodded. Let me deal with them. You've done enough. He shook his head. They won't stop because we stood on a platform. They'll stop when the people believe we're worth following. Then we show them, she said. He looked at her. Together? Always. Days passed. Then weeks. Small victories marked the shift, joint space patrols. Trade routes expanding. Mixed education programs for young psionics. Things once unthinkable slowly became normal. But peace is never a straight line. One evening, a message arrived. Uncoded. Short. One of yours seeks to ruin what we built. Meet me where it began. V. Jason knew immediately. He didn't tell Nelyra, not yet. He took a fast courier to the ruins of Arinder 2. Alone. The moon was quieter now. No scavengers. No signals. Just wind. Jason followed the coordinates. Down the same path. Past the broken palace wing. Through the arch where he'd first seen her pod. Vale waited there. Older. Thinner. But not defeated. You should have run, Jason said. I had nowhere to go. You sent the message. I did. Jason didn't reach for his weapon. Then say it. Vale's voice was dry. I fought for legacy. But you made the past irrelevant. Jason folded his arms. Because we didn't cling to it. Because you proved something I feared, that love, not strength, could unify. He looked out across the empty landscape. Let me vanish, Reese. No trials. No executions. Just obscurity. Jason studied him. Saw no lie. Only a broken man who'd bet everything on fear, and lost to something gentler. I should kill you, Jason said. Yes. But I won't. Vale looked surprised. Why? Because I don't need to. You've already buried yourself. He turned and walked away. Vale didn't follow. Jason returned at dawn. Nelyra was waiting by the window. Was it him? She asked. It was. Is it over? No. But it's quieter. She stepped into his arms. No crown. No robe. Just a woman who had once been lost to time, and now stood in the future. What now? She whispered. Jason kissed her forehead. Now we live. And outside the palace, 1,000 lights blinked across the sky, human ships and Aurelian cruisers sharing orbit. Not perfect. Not peaceful. But building something real. And it began, not with conquest. But with a rescue in the dust.